the bride of the cursed lake. Chapter 6 Reflections of Madness. Part 1. I woke mid-gasp, mid-thought, with nothing but a taut thread of memory to pull me toward sense. A burning wire across my palm where I'd cut it last night, or some night before. Ink-stained hands, blood-dark lines on notes scattered like dead moths across the floor. It came back to me in ghost fragments, the fever of my pen, my thoughts, my desperate reach. Disjointed words floating up from the storm of paper. I lay back, drenched in the heavy sweat of another night wasted on ghosts and madness. Everything was in shambles. The cold whisper of Anna's dresses still hung in the closet, unworn, unfelt. Maps crumpled and creased lay across the table, abandoned in the chaos of too many half-thought plans. They stirred with each movement, restless as the hands that had placed them there. On the walls, newspaper clippings hung by rusted pins, their edges curled like dried leaves, waiting, watching in silence. Beneath it all, my eyes, haunted by knowledge they refused to confess, stared back at me from the shadows. In the corners where night and memory conspired, everything was nothing but loss. There was a phantom pressure behind my eyes, a hot throb that begged release. I ignored it. I couldn't tell if it had been days or weeks, if yesterday had even existed. The longer I looked, the less I saw. Notes, outlines, threads of thought, all tying back to her, to Anna, the tangle of dates. This ink-drowned madness. How long? How long? I ripped a page from its place and began writing, hurried letters dragging across the line, crossing them out, rewriting, reducing. The same desperate mantra, the same hopeless line, scratched out and rewritten. Time itself was unraveling, and the clock loomed above me like a silent judge. An idea struck, a revelation, and I found a patch of empty space on the floor where I could spread the crumpled papers like dead leaves. They shifted under my hands, feathery soft. The palm throbbed where I'd sliced it, pain writing its own script of blood on the page. Days tangled with nights, all of them marooned on that island of unmarked time. The night of Anna's disappearance, when the water took her from me. Time had a new shape now, an unfinished circle without her. But the ache refused to complete it. I stared at the lines again, my own name repeated in my own hand, until the letters swam, until they weren't my own, until they weren't anything at all. I shook my head, closed my eyes against the nausea, and tried to focus. I had to make it fit. Anna. Her absence was everywhere. Anna. The name seared itself into my mind until I was blind to everything else. The pen hovered, waiting to strike. I dropped it, a forgotten thought. My breathing came quick, harsh, the pages lifting with each exhale as if mocking me with their own palpitating heartbeats. I dropped to the floor, my knees landing hard on the boards, the jolt enough to pull me back from the spiral. I let the sting of it ground me, force my breath steady. Only then did my hands stop shaking long enough to reach for one of the scattered pages, half written, half erased, and begin again, trying to piece together the days, the dates, the lies I'd told myself, trying to make sense where sense refused to stay. The phone rang, sharp and jarring against the hush of the room. I let it go at first, hoping the sound might bleed into the silence and die there. But it kept ringing, again and again, until I could no longer pretend not to hear. Yes, the word scraped my throat as it left. Mr. Marrow. A pause heavy with hesitation and rain. It's the officer. Any change on your end? Number nothing. It's been... How long had it been? I fumbled for the answer that had seemed so certain just moments ago. We're doing what we can. A silence stretched, threaded with what he wouldn't say. Still no sign, I'm afraid. I'll be in touch. My voice was small, a whisper swallowed by shadows. Thank you. I listened to the click, the empty line, holding it to my ear like a seashell that should have contained a distant tide. Then there was only the patter of rain, a sound like ink on paper, like time running out. As I hung up, something flickered at the edge of vision, a light where there should be none, outside through the thin glass of the window. My pulse quickened, an old metronome rushing to catch up with a forgotten rhythm. I rushed to the window, breath fogging the pane with hot urgency. Through the blur, through the cold glass, I could see it, a white figure at the garden gate, watching, waiting. Anna, I gasped. Her name struck through me like lightning, cutting clean through the haze of doubt. In an instant, my mind was sharp, my body moving before I could think. I lunged for the door, the cold night clawing at me with wet, desperate fingers. For one irrational moment, I braced for the door to slam shut, to trap me inside the madness I'd built. But instead, it creaked open without resistance, spilling me out into the waiting dark. I ran, barefoot and blind, into the shroud of mist and rain. The madness of loss had grown teeth, and it bit deep, sharp, precise, unforgiving. But she was there, and I had to get to her before the water took her from me again. Anna, I shouted, Anna. But when I reached the gate, there was nothing but empty space, and my own breath pounding against the night, refusing to return. No ghost, no echo, only a few faint footprints in the dirt. They led nowhere. They led to nothing at all. I stopped holding my sides to keep from breaking apart. Water streamed down my face, rain or tears or both, and I watched the shadows ripple across the empty space where she should have been, where she had been. The footprints were already fading, dissolving into mud and loss. The absence of her was a thing I could touch, and I held it until it bled into my skin, my heart, my memory. I turned back toward the house, toward the yellow glow of the window where I had seen her last. She was everywhere now, everywhere but where I needed her to be. I stood in the rain, unsure how long I'd been there, the minutes bleeding into each other, until even the clock seemed to forget its purpose. When at last I turned back toward the cottage, the space between each stride felt endless, each step dragging me further from where I'd hoped to be. Inside, I closed at the door and the walls closed in. The cottage was not a home, but a tomb, filled with the sigh of untold secrets. My eyes were wet. My clothes were wet. I looked again at the notes, the scattered plans, the insane hope written and rewritten in the dark. The pages were slick with water and grief. Her voice was in the corners, where night and memory conspired. Her voice was there. I was sure of it. But she was not. This is how madness takes root, I thought. Not all at once, but in slow, deliberate cuts. 1,000 tiny griefs bleeding into one. Anna, in every shadow, in every breath, in every place where she is not, and nothing else.